final award of the Garbarino Trophy this year. There were regattas on Saturday and Sunday. We bring you the best of the highlights of both days' events. We just heard the start there of the first race on Saturday evening, and this was the Bailey's Challenge Cup for ladies. And the crews in this race, in lane 1 and nearest to camera, Med first crew of Haviland, Shakaluga, Harrison and Wall, coxed by Sigurd Haviland. In lane 2, in the middle of the course there, the Calpe crew, and that was E. Montado, S. Davidson, A. Vela, S. Grek, coxed by K. Aquilina, and furthest away from camera, Med's second crew, and this was A. Alves, C. Alves, D. Bensadon, E. Figueras, coxed by J. L. Alves. And these races on Saturday were a distance of a mile, half a mile up to the buoy, and then they had to turn round the buoys towards the dockyard end, and then they made their way back to the finish line, which was just in front of both clubhouses. So it's early stages yet, and they're still all pretty close together as they make their way towards the South Mole end. And here's the Met first crew, who were hopeful of trying to do a little bit better in this race than they have done throughout most of the season, being second best to the Calpe ladies. But it was not to be, as Calpe ladies were again to prove too strong on this occasion, even though they had one change in their crew from previous races, with Emma Sopardi not being present and A. Vela taking her place. And now they've just turned round the boys, and Calpe already have quite a lead here. They're well in control of the race, and certainly they did not look back from this point on. Calpe ladies here now, as you can see, on their way to yet another win through what has been a very successful season for them, and they certainly have not looked back since having lost the Saccarello Trophy, as I've mentioned in previous reports. But there certainly is something there to be very pleased about from the Calpe Rowing Club. You can see here some of the men's boats on the bottom left-hand corner. That's a Calpe crew watching on as they prepare for their own race, and they must have been delighted to see their own Calpe ladies making it through to the finish line. And there's many delighted supporters cheering the Calpe crew in from their clubhouse as they come in with their last final efforts to the finish line with a winning time of 7:32.63. There's Cox Aquilina there getting the last few strokes from his crew, and the finishing line is almost in sight. The two Met crews are well behind, and from the position where we were reporting, it certainly seemed to be a good 4 to 5 lengths winning distance for the Calpe crew. There they are, arms raised in triumph. Met first crew coming in roundabout now. There's the finish line, and they did a time of 7:43.53. Med second crew making their way to the finishing line now in a time of 7:51.36. And there's the winning Calpe crew. I later managed to speak to one of these ladies, Stacey Grek. Stacey, you've been the most successful stroke in ladies rowing this season. How do you think the season's gone for you?
I think it's been great for the Calpe Rowing Club, for the 4 of us, because we've been training very hard throughout the season, and I mean, it's been compensated.
And it's been worth it then for you, obviously.
Yeah.
How long do you intend to stay in rowing for? Because it's a very tough sport.
Yes, I mean, I do enjoy it. I've been rowing since the '92, so I mean, I think I'll continue rowing.
And so on to the second race of Saturday evening's regattas, and this was the Porral Challenge Cup for men. 5 crews in this altogether, and as we look at the camera, the crews are Calpe, Med, Calpe, Med and Calpe alternately. You can see them all there moving off now. The same distance as the previous race, a mile, half a mile up towards the dockyard end, and turning at the buoys and making their way back to the finishing line again in front of the clubhouses. And already the 2 senior crews from both clubs are breaking away from the other three. There's still some way to go, of course, towards the dockyard end before they turn at the buoys. You can see here one of the Calpe crews coming into the picture now. It was difficult to see from this angle who was leading at this stage of the race. A Med crew coming into the picture now, and this will be followed by the rest of the field before they start turning at the buoys at the southern end. There's the rest of the field. And there was a fresh westerly blowing on Saturday, but certainly this did not seem to affect the conditions for the boats inside the harbour. They're still making their way towards the buoys. And after having rounded the buoys, they now make their way back towards the finishing line. Still difficult to see at this stage who's in the lead, but by now the Med first crew had built up a commanding lead, and this very strong crew who have had a very good season this year, winning all their races, and they're now pulling away from the rest of the field quite comfortably. Of course, this crew that we've mentioned now on countless occasions of Tyrone Moreno, James Viñales, Liam Yates, Stuart Bensadon, coxed by Mark Hemme. There's a clear picture of them now making their way towards the finishing line. The winning time for this crew was to be 4 minutes 11:42. So the cheering that had carried on previously from the Calpe clubhouse now transferred itself to the Med premises as they saw their crew being successful. Coming through to the finishing line now. Calpe first crew coming in now, and their time was 4:17:53. And coming in here for third place, so Med second crew, and their time was 4:19:24. And fourth and fifth were two more Calpe crews. And here's the Med winning crew, second crew coming into the picture just below them. And I later spoke to Stuart Bensadon, who's there wearing the white cap. He gave me his impressions on the season. Stuart, you've been the most successful stroke this season in local rowing. What are your impressions of the season overall?
Well, for us as first crew, it's been very good. We've been training very hard. Been fortunate enough to have a very good team with me. That consisted of Liam Yates, James Viñales and Tyrone Moreno. And also the coxswain has also been quite good. We can't disregard the coxswain, which has been Mark Hemme. You know, we've trained very hard for it, so we've produced the results for it.
You also competed in England earlier on in the season, I believe. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, we went up to the national championships. We voted in a Croxus 4. We did extremely well, you know, considering that it was the first time that we were competing in that type of boat. So, you know, we did very good times, but the competition there was very hard.
Well, and finally, Stuart, I mean, obviously you've got a very good crew, but no crew or team in any sport lasts forever. Is the Med got any people coming through to take over from some of you eventually, do you think?
We do have. We've got a lot of youngsters. We've been very much criticised by people from both clubs, especially from my club as well. But people don't realise that we've had a lot of people going to UK to actually study. We've had people doing the O levels as well this year. And then we've got, you know, about 4 or 5 youngsters between the age of 12 and 14 which are coming up. So we do have the people which are coming up, you know, but it takes time and a lot of effort, not from the rowers, but, you know, from people actually doing the coaching side of life.
Well, we're now looking at Sunday's races, and the first of these has just started off. And on Sunday it was the Gibtel Challenge Cup for under-16s, and this would be followed later on by the Carboni Challenge Cup for seniors. There was a difference in these races in that you had a total of 2 races taking place for each of the 2 cups. And at the end of both, the total aggregate times of the club crews was added up, and those with the best times, of course, would win the cup. But in the first of these races, for the under-16s, Med were well in control from the very start, and the crew with Willie David, D. Garcia, J. Lavagna, S. Haviland, Coxter by Lionel Gomez, building up a very healthy lead. And of course it was important not just to win the race, but to try and get as much time difference from your opponents as possible to make it easier for your other club crew to have it a more comfortable time of it in the second race. But there's the Med crew turning at the buoy now, and we can see that they have a lead as Calpe are turning roundabout now, and Med are making their way back down the course. A very difficult skill here to turn one of these yolas round in a buoy, but certainly all the crews were working hard at it throughout the course of the week in the harbour waters. But at least conditions seemed a lot better on Sunday morning than they had been on Saturday evening. The waters there looked a lot calmer, and certainly for the turning of the buoys, it must have made things a lot simpler for the crews. You can see the Calpe crew here nearest to land, trying to gain ground, but certainly it was going to be a very difficult thing for them to do, as Med were determined to start off Sunday morning with a win under their belts. And the crews are now approaching the buoys for the last time as they turn back towards the clubhouse. And there in the center of the picture, you can see El Pato with George Davidson at the helm. This, of course, was the marshal's boat, as is often the case on rowing days. There's the Met crew, coxed by Lily Gomez, as I mentioned before, turning again for the last time. Their lead has increased now considerably, very important for the time aspect of this competition. And of course, everything was hanging in the balance still on Sunday morning for the overall Garbarino trophy, which is the trophy that's awarded at the end of the season for the club that has won most races. So that was still very much at stake, and every second counted. So this crew was not going to let up as they made their way to the line to make sure that they could get as much time as possible between themselves and their Calpe rivals. And this they certainly did do, particularly in this first race. The winning time of this crew coming in towards their final leg was 3 minutes 29.79. And of course there was a big distance here because Calpe came in a little bit later on and their time was 3:56.36. They're coming into the finishing line round about now, and therefore they had managed already to start on a very good note on Sunday morning, gaining a difference of 26 plus seconds over their Calpe rivals. They're coming into the finishing line at this precise moment. And so on to the second race for the Gibtel Challenge Cup. And although Med now had a very big lead, it was really up to Calpe to try and cut down the deficit, although things were going to be very difficult for them with a difference of 26 seconds. But again, the Med crew were going to prove equally determined as their previous teammates. They were going to try and build up a good lead. Still looking close at the very start of the race, of course. But we will probably be able to appreciate the difference as the boats approach the buoys for the first time, with this Med crew nearest to camera of G. De Aro, C. Rodriguez, P. Buttigieg, I. Viñales, coxed by Mark Hemi, who usually coxes the first crew. But they've already got a lead here of some seconds as they start turning the buoy now. Obviously, Med now having a lot of work to do as the Gibtel Challenge Cup is slipping away from their grasp. Of course, these points were now going to prove crucial towards the winning of the Garbarino Trophy. And it seemed as if the Med crew could sense this, as with each stroke they seemed to push harder and harder. Hemi there sort of trying to get as much as he can from them as the crew sort of passes by closest to land. Calpe there by being coxed by club captain Leslie Gregg. But already Med have this big lead as they turn the buoy again for the final time, making their way home. And of course the acquisition of the Gibtel Challenge Cup. You can see there the Calpe crew still trying to make their way towards turning the buoy for the last time, but everything has been decided by now, and the winning time of this Med crew was 3 minutes 15:52. Whilst Calpe, who are still turning the buoy there now, did a time of 3:43.87. So the total difference in this race was that of 28.35 seconds. The total aggregate was a Med win over the two races of 54.71 seconds. They're approaching the finishing line now, being cheered on by the supporters at the Med clubhouse as they make their way down the home stretch towards what was going to prove a very decisive and big victory. In fact, the cruiser is very confident, raising their arms in delight before they even get to the finishing line. Perhaps something there that's lacking a little bit of respect towards their opponent, but they did have a very big commanding lead, and certainly the Gibtel Challenge Cup awarded to them. I later spoke to both club captains, Leslie Gregg from Calpe Rowing Club and Joey Alves from Med Rowing Club. Well, Leslie, we spoke much earlier on in the season, and your predictions have more or less come true. The Calpe youngsters crews have managed to keep you in touch with the Med for the Garbarino Trophy.
Yeah, that's right. It's been pretty close all the year. We came ahead just after the international regatta, but I think the Med really pushed us towards the end, and the first crew has really won them the Porral Garbarino Trophy. We've kept in touch with our Forestier Walker crews, our junior crews, our second crews, and last but not least our ladies crews, who've really won everything that they've raced for, and they've won it formidably well, and all credit to them. But the good thing is that I think we're on course for next year with a number of crews who will be contesting the top places. Yeah.
Well, Joey, you had to take over club captaincy at very short notice because Alfred Lavagna had to pull out for personal reasons. Was it difficult for you to come in?
Well, it wasn't that difficult because I was vice captain with Alfred at the time, so I just took over from what we were doing when we were both together in the same team.
And how do you think the season's gone for Med?
Well, at the beginning we lacked at second crew level. Slowly we've been bringing these second crews up. We had Osman coming over who were studying in UK. That has helped a lot as well. And I think today the second crew has done a very good race, and hopefully they keep it up for tomorrow's race as well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that, Joey, because it's obvious that Med have got a very strong first crew, but are there that many youngsters coming through, and what has Med got planned for the future?
Well, at the moment we've got a program. We've got school children coming up and training 2 or 3 times a week, and hopefully we'll get those youngsters up and become members of the club, and hopefully they will be the crews of the future.